him in this way. How many of you feel good tonight? How many know that he's great tonight? Regardless of your circumstances, he's great tonight. Regardless of whatever the devil's trying to punch at you, he's still great tonight. And he's worthy to be praised. Hallelujah. Come on, bless the name of the Lord in this place. As Pastor Jennifer, she would say there's no better time than to give God the best gift that you can give. So as we continue to worship and continue to tell him how great he is, we ask you to get your offering together. And we ask ushers, you can come on down. Because he's worthy to be praised. How many believe that? He didn't only die for me, right? No. Hallelujah. He's worthy to be praised. Glory to God. Hallelujah. Bless your name, Jesus. He's worthy. Hallelujah. Thank you, Jesus. Hallelujah, Jesus. Glory to God. He's worthy. He's worthy. We bless him tonight. We worship him tonight. Hallelujah, Jesus. Glory to God. Can we stand when you have your gift? Just stand. Hallelujah. Father, in the name of Jesus, we come to you, God, tonight, giving you praise, worship, glory, and honor. And God, as we bring our gifts to you, we ask you to bless them, God, multiply them, God, increase them, God, in this house and in ours. We bless every giver as they come, God. In your mighty name, we continue to pray. And you're released to bring your offering. Hallelujah.
And we've got Pastor Dani preaching tonight, and she's it's probably a good thing that we got the loan for the roof because we're going to need one because she's going to tear this one up. Just kidding. So I'm going to call out some announcements. These are all of the coolest things happening. First of all, Kids Mania is right around the corner. It's literally like 2 weeks away, and it's the best part of the year where we just get to do crazy rainbow fun, sparkle glitter things, and have fun with our kids and throw, I don't know, there might be pizza that we like throw at people, I don't know. So Kids Mania registration is open right now. So if your kids aren't registered yet, go to the Facebook page, there's a link there. There's one on the website, so go to the website, right on the front page there's your registration link. So get your kids signed up so they have a backpack with all of the stuffings and all the good stuff. Every Monday night we have creative team night. That's for dancers at 6, worship team at 7. Next Wednesday is our backpack packing party. That is not an opportunity for you guys to check out. So we need all hands on deck. We got to pray over those backpacks, stuff all the good stuff in them. We're still going to worship and have a good time, so be here for that. Let's see what else. This Friday is Brother Ken Warren's funeral. So that will be at 10 a.m. For anybody who will be here and is able to bring a side, please make that for your whole family, so like 4 or 5 people, and you can bring that just on your way into the service. Just drop that off at the kitchen, and there'll be individuals and volunteers back there ready to put that aside, and we'll eat together in fellowship after the service. So I think that is all that we need for this week. So put your hands together. Pastor Dani.
Hello. I was number 6. Now I am number 4. I'm up. All right. I am so excited to see you guys tonight because last week we were locked up. It was miserable. We had a giant pool with a group of teenagers. I think I ate more than the teenagers, but I'm blaming the pregnancy. One day I think I had 4 bowls of cereal. That was in addition to my regular meals. So needless to say, I'm doing really great with weight gain this pregnancy. It's going so good. But I'm excited to be back, one, because I missed you all. And being in a house full of teenagers reminds you how much you love adults. Not that we don't love our teenagers, but they play hide and seek till 2 o'clock in the morning. And they don't play well, meaning, when you play hide and seek, you kind of want to stealth mode it. Not them. They're like elephants running up and down the stairs. I knew where everybody was hiding and I wasn't even playing. So, but we survived and we made it, and God did some incredible things on that trip. And I'm excited to see what he's going to do afterwards. They're in here with us tonight. Where's my youth group? Hi. There's one back there, but she didn't raise her hand, but I still see you. So anyway, I'm excited to be back. Before I get started, I've been really burdened today for Miss Sharon Warren. As you know, we have Brother Ken's service on Friday, but I can't imagine the weight of what this week has been for her. So if you guys wouldn't mind, I'd like us to take just a few minutes. I'm going to pray over her, over their family, and over the friends as they continue to prepare to say, see you soon. Father, I thank you so much for our family here at Harvest. God, I thank you for what they mean, not just to my family personally, but to all of us. Each person is so intricately placed here, and they play such a huge role. To have to say see you later to anyone is such a heartbreaking experience. So God, right now, I lift up Miss Sharon and their sons to you. God, I pray that you would hold them close. God, that you would give them the peace that passes understanding. God, that even though such a tragedy has happened, that you're holding them together. You're binding up their wounds. Your word promises that you are close to the brokenhearted. God, I pray that she would tangibly feel you close to her tonight. God, for each friend and family member that is affected, for the people traveling to the service on Friday, God, I pray that you would be with them, keep them protected. But God, help them, hold them, be with them in a way that I don't even know how to pray. But you understand, and you are there, and you understand, and that's all that matters. God, we love you, and we praise you, for in all things you are good. In Jesus' name, amen. Amen. So I'm really excited. I got really into illustrated sermons while I was on this trip with the teenagers, because I don't know if you've ever had to compete with a pool or with Universal Studios, but you have to do something that gives them something to look at, or they're just watching their clock until they can go jump in the pool. And so I'm doing an illustrated message tonight. But first I have to introduce you to something. Many of you who don't come back to Harvest Kids will be appreciative to know that this is the very thing that has changed Harvest Kids. This is what we call our handy dandy thing. And up until a couple of weeks ago, it still fit me. I don't think it does now, so I'm not gonna try. But inside this is a very, very magical, I don't know another word. Chelsea, I can't open. Oh wait, I got it. They're magical. See, they look like regular dollar store marbles, but something happens whenever they come out of this pink fanny pack, and they just change the atmosphere of the room. And what I mean is, it can be sheer chaos. But if we pull this out, it is silent. And I don't know if you have these at your house, if you have children, but let me tell you, get a handy dandy fanny and some magic dollar store pebbles, and your whole house will change. So anyway, they're part of our message tonight, but I needed you to know this is the greatest thing ever for parents. Okay, so how many of you, this actually hits really close to home after last week, being gone for a week, ministering and pouring out to teenagers, how many of you have ever been just really caught in the business of blank? So maybe the work of ministry, or the work of 9 to 5, or the work of parenting, or the work of cooking, which I find that the more I'm home, the more I feel like most of my life is in a kitchen. Last week, that was Chelsea's testimony. Most of her life was in a kitchen cooking for the teenagers. And you can get really caught up in the work of things. And at some point, I don't know if you're like me, but you can get to a spot where you're just like, does anybody see me? Do I see me? When's the last time I've looked in a mirror? I mean, really. For me, that was today when I curled my hair. I don't remember the last time I had actually done my hair. So I look different. I have grown. But you start to wonder, am I seen? Am I even aware of what's going on? Am I aware of what my place is? And you can just get really heavy. Well, I felt that way. I felt that way multiple times. And if I'm completely honest, after a week of choosing to pour myself out for a group of teenagers, I kind of felt that way coming home. And on the way home, we received a text about Mr. Ken, and it was really heartbreaking to us. We stopped and we spent a good portion of our Friday night after unloading and getting all the kids home, just crying, praying for the family, and really trying to intercede on something that I would have no idea how to intercede. I don't know what it is like for that kind of loss, but the best we could, we prayed. And then Saturday came, and we're grieving, and we're also very exhausted, and then we had to print bulletins, and we had to make sure the church was ready, and we had to make sure everything was set up for Harvest Kids. And then Sunday came, and then Monday came, and I started to realize I don't think I'd looked up, but I knew I was tired. And I knew I was tired when I had a phone call from a friend, and there was nothing wrong with the phone call, yet I got off the phone just crying, thinking, okay, this is it. I quit. I'm never cooking again. I'm never doing laundry again. That's it. This is it. And there's a song, and I'm not going to sing it because I can't sing this song right, but it popped in my head. I hadn't heard it since I was little, and it was, fill my cup, Lord. I lift it up, Lord. Come and quench this thirsting in my soul. Breath of heaven, come and fill me till I want no more. Fill my cup. Fill it up and make me whole. And I walked around my house, and through ugly tears, that's all I knew to pray, was to fill me up. And I started to maybe think of this woman. So I'm going to go to John chapter 4. You can turn there with me if you'd like. I'm going to paraphrase, but there's a part of the scripture that really stuck out to me. And tonight we're going to be talking about what it's like when we need God to fill our cup. Because I'd like to believe that somebody out there has also been in a spot where you really need God to fill your cup. Am I alone? Please tell me I'm not alone. Have you ever needed just a reprieve? I got like 5 of you, and that is enough for me. So just as long as I'm not on this boat by myself. Has anybody ever said I'm never doing laundry again? I know you said that. That's another sermon. Anyways, so John chapter 4, there's this character. I don't know, for those of you who haven't heard me speak, I'm much more of a storyteller, so I will reference scripture, of course, and you can confirm it in the word, but I like to think that somewhere in my heritage I'm Jewish, because if you've ever sat around a table with a Jewish family, they will tell you some stories. Over food, which I did ask if I could do tonight, they told me no. So, anyway, I will still tell the story. There's this woman, and we don't know her name, but Jesus had been on a ministry trip, doing the thing that Jesus did, healing people, showing up. all the things that we're supposed to do, right? And he gets to this town, and it says it's about noon. And so I'm imagining it's probably like the middle of July in Florida. So he's probably really hot, and he's tired of walking. And his disciples go, and they have their things that they have to do, and he stops at this well. And this woman comes up, and he asks her for some water, as any reasonably sane person would do. Because I'm thirsty, it is the middle of July, and it's hot like Florida, so I'm thirsty. And so this woman comes, looks at him and says, "Do you know who I am? Why are you talking to me? I'm a Samaritan. You don't talk to Samaritans. Why are you talking to me? Do you know?" And he, through an exchange, said, "Woman," which I think he can get a free pass for calling her a woman because he was hot in the middle of July. So I just imagine he was probably a little bit snippy, like, "I don't have time for this. Just make me some water. But fine, I'll respond to you." And he said, "Woman, if you knew who I was, you would know that you should be asking me for water because you'd never be thirsty again." And she loved that. "You're telling me I won't have to walk to this well every day at noon in the summer? Yeah, I want that kind of water." And so they have this exchange, and she says, "Yes, I want that." And he told her to get her husband. And we know the story. She had 5 husbands, but the man she was with, so number 6, was not her husband. And that lets me know there's a narrative there. She would have been on a soap opera for sure. For sure she had some story to tell, and it would not have been on TLC. I know that. That's daytime television, CBS. My Nana would have watched it. And she was stunned. Now, there could have been 2 reasons she was stunned. The first would have been, how'd he know that? Because I don't know him. But I think there was something that was more profound to her in that moment than, I don't need him throwing up a business like that. Which was, he told me that I don't have to be thirsty again. And he sees me. Which means he knew that I've been married 5 times. And I'm with a man who is not my husband. Yet I could be filled. He sees me and still chooses me. Who is this? And then the story continues, and he explains, "No, I am the Messiah." That's the last thing he says to her, because she knew that a Messiah was coming, because that's what the Jews had talked about. And he was saying, who you are referring to, that's me. And there is a time, and the time is now, where you are accepted. And she leaves and she runs. It doesn't say he ever gave her water. Or it doesn't actually say he ever got water either, which I wonder if in hindsight he would have asked her to get the water and then told her what he said. But at any rate, I'm out of breath because of the baby. I think I need a chair. This is really funny. I've not done this yet. So she runs and she tells. She's the one of the. I'm not sitting in that, but thank you. I'll hold it. This is what I look like now. I just need a minute. She runs and she becomes one of the first evangelists. But it occurs to me, something happened in that moment, because we're talking about fill my cup. For somebody to show up to a well that day, she's going to meet her natural need. This woman didn't even have access to the spiritual need that she knew she had, because nobody, very few people, I'll switch it, very few people who have been married 5 times and are with their 6th person, very rarely do they feel seen. And very rarely do they know their worth. And very rarely do they know who they are. And in one moment, what filled her up wasn't water. He didn't give her some sparkle unicorn water. He gave her something that was bigger. He gave her this level of affirmation, this level of, I see you. And in spite of what I see, I choose you. And even though it's been said to you that only these people have access to these things, you now have hope and current access to these things. And all of a sudden, these are my handy dandy magic marbles, she could take access to, I am fearfully and wonderfully made. Did I make it? Okay, I can't see. She had access to the knowledge that I am more than a conqueror, that I am the apple of God's eye, that whenever he thinks of the good that he created, because, after he created Adam and Eve, it was good, she was that good. And all of a sudden, she had these pieces of affirmation. She had access to something that she hadn't had access before. And in that moment, can I pour this? I picked this because this was the oldest looking canister that we had, and it made me think if God had a canister, it would probably be old. I don't know. Anyway, see, he filled her up with affirmation, but what I don't think she realized was that mixed up in her affirmation and this awareness that she had, he also filled her up with an assignment, with a purpose. So she runs, and she becomes that first evangelist, and she says, no, there's this guy at the well. He said he's the Messiah. You're my hero.
Sorry.
This is why we love Wednesdays, because it can be so much more casual. Anyway, if you want to turn the fan on, you can then be my hero. This is real life, y'all. I was wondering what day it would come that I was going to need to sit down and speak. Today. Today's that day. Where was I? Oh, she had this moment of affirmation, not knowing that he had given her just enough to make her run to her family and say, hey, there's this guy. Yes, he knew that I was married 5 times and I'm with another man. We're not talking about that because he didn't address that, so don't bring it up, Mom. But what I'm just trying to tell you is he knew. He knows me. And then he said that there's a time when the true worshipers are going to worship, and I think he said that I could be a true worshiper, and all of a sudden, I'm not separated anymore, and he chose me, even though I've been with the 5 guys. See, Mom, I told you. And this whole narrative is happening, but she's saying there's this man, and he says he's the Messiah, and he is alive, and he is here, and oh my gosh, he picked me. And if he picked me. And all of a sudden, affirmation was enough for her to encounter this moment of purpose. And it was minimal revelation. She didn't have time to really get into the theology of all the things. It takes years for people to study it, but all she needed was a little bit. I don't know all the things I have access to yet, but I have access to all the good stuff, and that's good enough for me because I've had a lot of bad stuff. So this is great, and I'm going to take this, and I'm going to run with it, and I'm going to let somebody else know that, hey, look, I've been married 5 times, and he picked me. And y'all know why I was married 5 times, so you know he shouldn't pick me, and yet he did. He'll pick you. Fill my cup. Well, then something happens, because I can relate to this story. I remember my moment of encountering Jesus where all of a sudden, I didn't feel like an orphan anymore. I didn't feel neglected. I didn't feel rejected. For the first time, I remember being seen. And I won't go into my testimony, but for somebody who had just lost her mom just a couple months before, I needed someone to see me, because right after I lost my mom, I also learned that the reason I hadn't seen my dad in years is because he was in jail. I just thought he lived in Georgia, which he did. He did live in Georgia, just not in the conventional home. But I didn't know. And so in one moment, and then I went to live with family I didn't know. In Texas. They made me go to Texas. I don't know if Texas is a good place, but it's forever cemented as never move there. Because it was hot, and it smelled weird, and they had weird Chinese food and no sweet tea, and that just doesn't seem like a place that God likes. And so that's where I had to go. So I lost my mom, I realized where my dad was, they took away my sweet tea, and everybody I knew, and I'm living with these strangers who I thought were Catholic, because I had never heard of anything other than Baptist or Catholic, but we were actually Pentecostal, we weren't Catholic. Those are very different, if you don't know. And so when you walk around telling everybody you're Catholic, people get curious. Because I was like, yeah, no, they speak in other languages and stuff. I don't know, but that's what I am now. So that's what I would tell people. But I remember there was this altar call, and I decided not to go to children's church that day, and I was invited to come, or there was an invitation to come to the front, and I needed that God, because the God that I had known before, he was a felt board God. He wasn't alive. But this God apparently liked people. And you could feel things with this God. And there was emotion to him. And I don't know, things happened and I wanted that. And he liked people. And I really needed to be liked. And I remember that moment, my well experience. And it may have seemed silly when you're 8, but I don't know, maybe whenever you walk through some of the things that I walked through as an 8-year-old, free pass, you get to be a little bit more grown up and experience something different. So, my cup was full. But then, I start thinking, because he said in scripture that when he fills you up, you won't be thirsty anymore. But fast forward, and at one point, I was thirsty again. Have you ever been thirsty again? Yes. I've been thirsty again. And it challenged limited theological knowledge that I had. Well, if your word says that I'm not going to be thirsty again, and here I am crying out to you because I'm thirsty again, perhaps you didn't fill me? Did I spring a leak? Like, what happened? Where did my fill leak go? Because you're not limited by me, so what's going on? Well, that's how I felt. That's how I felt these past few months. I'll invite you into my living room and tell you that sometimes you just get tired. And you feel tired. And you're just like, I'm begging you to fill me. I know that I am doing the work of ministry, red flag, and I think I forgot the why. What do I do? And God so faithfully. I love David. I tell my husband this all the time because he's been, people reference him as David because he's a redhead and he sings. And he doesn't know this, but I used to pray for a David. Win. God likes me. My husband, when he spoke a couple Sundays ago, he talked about some of the dichotomy of David and how probably in today's standards, he probably would have been suggested medication because little all over the place, that guy, but he wrote some great music, so free pass. No, but of course, in these moments of this desperation, I don't know many books that have enough content that will probably match some level of desperation I have. And in chapter 16, which is what I'm about to read from, God spoke to what I thought was emptiness again. And he said, David said, "Preserve me, O God, for in you I take refuge." It's important to note that around this chapter, he was asking, hey, when are you going to vindicate me? When are you going to show up? So I don't think that this was the happiest of times for David. And he said, "Preserve me, O God, for in you I take refuge. I say to the Lord, you are my Lord. I have no good apart from you. As for the saints in the land, they are the excellent ones, in whom is all my delight. The sorrows of those who run after another God shall multiply. Their drink offerings of blood I will not pour out or take their names on my lips. The Lord is my chosen portion and my cup. You hold my lot. The lines have fallen for me in pleasant places." Now he's saying this. I think this is where his declaration came in, where he was having to say this in spite of what was around him. "The lines have fallen for me in pleasant places. Indeed, I have a beautiful inheritance. I bless the Lord who gives me counsel in the night. Also my heart instructs me. I have set the Lord always before me, because he is at my right hand. I shall not be shaken. Therefore my heart is glad, and my whole being rejoices. My flesh also dwells secure. For you will not abandon my soul, or let your Holy One see corruption. You make known to me the path of life. In your presence there is fullness of joy. At your right hand are pleasures forevermore." I think something happens when we look at the scripture and say, you're going to fill me up, and I'm never going to be thirsty again, and you're going to tell me all these things about me, and it's going to be really great, and I'm going to encounter my purpose, and then I'm going to go, and I'm going to go, and I'm going to do it, and this is great. And that's us, a little less in this moment, and it's great. And we start pouring out, and we start doing the work of ministry. And I just want to say this is a sidebar, but I think it's really important. Whether you're work of church ministry, work of 9-to-5 ministry, work of parenting ministry, work of teaching ministry, work of grocery shopping ministry, whatever your work of, it's all ministry. So please don't for 1 second think that as I'm saying, we've gotten overwhelmed by the work of ministry. I mean all of it, life. Because something happens and you realize, well, it's not really for me anyway. And you get busy with the work of it because something in our natural mind really likes to jump to the production style of life. I'm going to check this off, I'm going to check this off, and I'm going to check this off, and I'm going to smile at 5 people today. You can smile if you love Jesus. And then if I see somebody with a walker, I'm going to just walk, God bless you. And then if I see somebody who's homeless, I'm going to stop and pray for them for sure, because I don't know if they're going to remember it when I leave, because that guy was talking to himself. So I'm definitely going to pray for him, because that's really not comfortable for me. And all of a sudden, I've done all of my production list for the day. Oh, and I print bulletins. So if you do that, sometimes in our production mind, you're set, you've done it, you've made this commitment to God, but at some point, we've lost the why. See, David, he had his same level of affirmations that day that the prophet came and anointed him king, and then his dad just sent him back to the field. He left that day knowing that his inheritance was beautiful, and he had this level of affirmation. And then he gets into the presence of the king and in the king's house, and then, some things happen, and then he has to take off and run for his life. His affirmation and none of that ever changed. But at some point, David found himself probably in a cave, and he was like, hello, fill me up. What are you doing here? And God said, I'm so glad you asked. See, you got so caught up in the work of that you forgot the why behind. See, I'm never going to let you go empty. You'll never go empty, because my word cannot return void. But what I will always do is increase your capacity. See, something happened, and I think this happened probably with the woman at the well, because she became an evangelist, and we know what happened to the disciples after Jesus, did all his cool stuff, died, rose again, all those things. The important stuff. They experienced a really rough road. They knew Jesus, and they had those levels of affirmation, but their responsibility and revelation continued to grow. The more they encountered new aspects of their purpose, the more they encountered new aspects of who God really was. See, when we get to that spot where we're wondering, hey, can you fill me up again? Well, no, you're not empty, but I needed you to get here. I'm so glad you showed up. First, because it got you in my presence, and in my presence is fullness of joy. David knew it whenever he got it. So first, you got to get back in my presence. You got to get to the why behind it first. And now I'm glad you're here, because I've actually brought you to a fork in the road, and you have a decision. See, you're not empty, but your capacity has changed. See, I've brought you through some experiences, and I've brought you through some things, and I can't just let you stay in this tiny cup anymore. So your tiny cup is full. But I needed you to get here and get back in my presence so you could see that really I've just prepared another cup for you. And we know that happens because he talks about old wineskins and new wineskins, and I don't know a lot about wine, but he turned water into wine, so he had some analogies with wine. And so we know that sometimes you're going to have to change. And you're probably going to have to expand, and you're probably going to have to do some things, right? And so in his presence is fullness of joy, but also in his presence is this moment of, I have a decision to make. Am I going to stay in my tiny cup in that moment at the well? Or am I going to have this encounter with you that maybe I understand that my assignment has changed? My purpose hasn't, but my assignment has changed, and that is important, because we have to be fully aware of when God says stay and when God says go, and maybe when God says stay and go, because sometimes he just really likes to throw a monkey wrench in things and you have to figure it out. I don't know what that means, but God does some crazy stuff like that sometimes. But I need you to notice something. I didn't add any more pebbles. See, David sat in that cave with the same amount of pebbles he started out with. And that woman at the well, whenever she ran and she had to go tell everybody, I met this guy and he saw me and he chose me. She also met neighbors who were like, girl, come on. I know about such and such, and you shouldn't be doing this and that, and you're telling me that you're going to go tell people about Jesus? You don't speak good English. Yeah, well, maybe I'll go talk to the people who don't speak good English. I don't know. I'm going to go and I'm going to do this. The affirmation didn't change. The responsibility changed. The assignment changed. But something has to change with our pebbles too, and it's not going to be the amount of pebbles we get, because God still says the same things about us. He says, you are fearfully and wonderfully made. You are more than a conqueror. You are the apple of his eye. You are a jewel. You are the crown of creation. You are all of those things, and he has created you as such. That can't change. He can't add to that because it's enough. There's a scripture that I love, and I've told so many youth groups this, and it goes, I don't remember where it's at, but it's the glory of God to conceal a matter, and it is the glory of a king to sort it out. Something happens in our transfer of responsibility where there's a demand for a transfer of revelation. Because if our capacity grows, we have to be able to maintain our new capacity with a greater understanding. It's not good enough for me to know what being more than a conqueror is. I have to know what being more than a conqueror is. Today, my revelation of that is I'm standing in a courtroom because, we all go through trials. Who can relate to the word trial? Anybody ever watched Judge Judy? I mean, loose example, but a trial, okay? Our trials are very similar. We find ourselves in a courtroom against an accuser who has stacks of evidence against us. Yet, no matter how much he puts against us, no matter how much he throws, and it is probably spot on, because I don't care how good you think you are, you're rotten in the presence of God in that courtroom. And the enemy knows it. And he also knows how to twist things. And we're just sitting there thinking, yeah, he's right, actually. I did do that. But I can't even argue with him. I have no argument. And Jesus says, yes, but. That's being more than a conqueror, where you can go into a courtroom and be guilty beyond guilt and worthy of the death penalty, yet you walk out free.
Yes, yes.
See, we have to go through this moment where we transfer responsibility, because, see, she had a limited revelation here, and it was enough for this responsibility, but our role in getting a new responsibility, for him filling our cup, part of our responsibility is a deeper revelation to search out what it is that God is actually saying, because it is his goodness that draws men to repentance. But if I can't find his goodness, if I can't understand what he says about me, I will never be able to tell you what he says about you.
Come on now.
But then we go a little bit further, because there's one more cup story that comes to mind. Jesus was in a garden, and in Matthew chapter 26, it says he fell on his face and he said, please let this cup pass from me. See, something happened. See, here we have the opportunity to choose, and of course we're going to choose this one. This is a safe one. This is a good sized cup. I can manage this cup. I can probably, this is good. But then we have this opportunity, and it's a heavy one. And we get in that moment where we need to be filled up again, and God's like, no, you're full. Remember, I'm bringing you to an opportunity to expand your cup. Again, except this time Jesus is looking at his cup expansion. He's like, wait a minute. The amazing thing to me about Jesus is how human he was. Yes, he's God, and I lean into the godness of Jesus. But sometimes I need the humanity. The humanity of Jesus was, I don't fully know what this death is going to be like because I've never experienced it, but I do know it's going to hurt. And I do know that it's going to hurt emotionally. And I do know that my friends are going to betray me. They're sleeping right now. I am hurt. I do know that the people that love me are going to be confused and devastated, and that bothers me. Please take this cup, because this is way more than I even accounted for. I could handle the death, but I can't handle this. But nevertheless. And Jesus had this moment where he had to remember, he had to let the revelation of the affirmation of God change something in him, where he said, no, it's always for my good, and it's always for your glory. And it's never meant for my death and destruction. That's what Psalms chapter 16 that I just read said. My inheritance is beautiful, so it can't end like this. So I'll say yes to this cup. But, just like Jesus, when we say yes to the cup, when we have this deeper understanding of our responsibility and a deeper revelation of who he is, I've started to learn something with the bigger cup. And he has to let us get to a spot where we're desperate to be filled up more. Because it's never just about us. It's always about other people seeing his goodness and his glory through us. How good he is to us and how we can tell the story of God's goodness. This one was a really hard thing for me to write down. I actually wrote it down in the ready room because I don't know how to express to you how much I am preaching to myself right now. Filling our cup is so much more about responsibility and revelation than it is about comfort. Peace, yes. Comfort, never. And I had to wrap my head around this fact that God loves me enough to not care if I'm comfortable. And I can dig my heels in the dirt and say, I'm not doing this until you make me comfortable. And he says, I won't make you comfortable until you do it. See, Jesus had to go through the cross to get to the resurrection. He had to go through the cross to get to Pentecost. See, the woman at the well, she had to have the encounter she had because she had to reach people that Jesus couldn't get to. He had to be there for Jews, but in one moment, a whole community heard about Jesus and he didn't have to step foot there. And all of a sudden, a group of people were chosen. So often, I think we get caught up in this selfishness to fill my cup. And I think what God is really trying to show us is there's no room for selfishness in your cup. And if you find yourself in a place where it feels dry, it's because you're having an opportunity to actually let something shift in your life. To have this moment of maybe a deeper revelation of what it actually means to be his and the responsibility that comes with that. I spent a week with teenagers, and can I tell you that they wonder why we talk about miracles and they don't see them? That broke my heart. Now, obviously, we have seen a level of miracles here, and that's great, but you know, the ones where people are raised from the dead, and cancer is healed, and relationships are mended. They hear us. And I didn't realize how selfish I had gotten with my cup until I realized that I had been in a place where God was asking me to expand. And I had to make the decision, am I okay with that responsibility? And who do you say I am in this new season? Like, what is the deeper revelation? Because if I'm going to believe you for miracles, then I have to understand what miracles you're doing in my life, because he'll start it with us. And I have a miracle list running right now. I can tell you the things that God has done and is continuing to do, and what I'm forcing myself to believe him to do. He's filled our cup. But tonight, what I think he's inviting us to is a bigger one. I wish I could think about how to wrap this up, but I can't, other than I hope we leave remembering that it's not about us. I get an opportunity every week to sit in front of the next generation, and this is what I can tell you. I've been doing a lot of research, and I'm watching some things that are going on in the shows that our kids are watching, and probably some of my generation is watching. They're hungry. They're hungry for the prophetic. They're hungry to be seen. They're hungry for something that's not just surface level. If we're going to talk about a God that's supernatural, the world is giving them supernatural right now. Our supernatural is better. But if we don't get to a place where we are willing to expand our cup and give up our comfort, what will they miss out on, and what will the world give them in our stead? Because they'll find it. I know they will, because I know where they're looking. I think I'm going to pray, because I don't think I want to end this. I think this is something, my prayer is that it's something that you will go home and you will chew on, and you will discover if you are in a place of frustration or hurt or just feeling empty. It's normal, but God's right there. And his presence is fullness of joy. And if you're not feeling it, it's because he's drawing you to his presence. He's good like that. He'll let us feel dry, so we'll go to our source. Tonight, your invitation is to go to the source and remember how full you are, and let him show you how full you need to be, and what that can do, what his goodness to you can produce as glory for him. Father, I thank you that your word is true, that when you fill us with living water, we won't ever thirst again. And when we feel thirsty, your word reminds us that it's in your presence that's fullness of joy. And sometimes our cups expand, but you have the pitcher ready to pour. God, I pray that you would meet us in this place. God, that your revelation would be even bigger than what we could imagine. God, I thank you that even though we have the pebbles that we started off with as understanding, that you will continue to reveal your truth to us through those words. What does it mean to be more than a conqueror? What does it mean to be a resurrected God in our life? What does it mean to be our deliverer? What does it mean to be our salvation? God, we want to know more. We want to understand more, because you're not a surface level God, and you've hidden things just so we'll press into you and find out. And God, we are desperate to find out. We are desperate for you. We are desperate for everything that comes with being an heir to your kingdom. God, if we represent your kingdom, let us walk with the authority to see healing, to see deliverance, to see breakthrough, to set captives free, because that's what it is to be a representative of your kingdom. The earth is full of lies and false truth, false gods, but we have the one living God who will show up, and he will choose you at your worst, and he will send you running, full of power. God, we position ourselves in your presence. Fill us with your joy. Fill us with your peace. And God, we thank you for making us uncomfortable in those moments so that we remember to run to you. Father, you're faithful and we love you. You are good and we love you. Amen.
We can't exactly lead without example. And a lot of things she talked about tonight was expanding our territory, stepping out of our comfort zone. Earlier today, I was working on building my faith as I was doing the tasks of ministry stuff, and I was watching Bethel testimonies on YouTube. And I came across a girl that had a very similar testimony to something I'm kind of trying to overcome right now. And she kind of got to the end of her rope, and she just walked in, and she was like, God, please, send anyone, just anything, just send them. And she was very surprised to find a lady that danced at the church approached her and said, you're going to think I'm absolutely insane, but can I dance over you? And she was like, what? What does that look like? How's that? She's like, but then she was like, yes. I said something, yes. So she laid on the floor, and this woman beautifully just danced in the Spirit, circling around her, following the Spirit's leading, pulling down things that she didn't know that she was touching, and doing things in the spirit realm that we just can't see with the flesh eye. And God worked a miracle through that. And tonight, my wife asked me to close out, and I said, Lord, okay, how do I do this? And as she's talking about uncomfortable, I was reminded, that I too am in a process of overcoming my comfort levels as well. One of mine is singing. I can't tell you what happens when I start to sing, and the level of insecurity and the thoughts that overcome me and the stuff that I have to do to make anything come out of my mouth. And I can have a room full of people telling me that it sounds great, but I have to overcome Kyler, who says otherwise. So when I was like, God, how do I bless them? He said, you gotta overcome that. It's not about you. It's not about your standards of what you think is good or your comparison to any other man. It's about your obedience and submission unto what I tell you to do. So tonight, I'm going to do something a little unconventional for our blessing on our way out. And that is to let me bless you by singing over you what I feel like the Lord has told me to sing. I am not Tasha Cobbs, and I am not Justin Hill. And if I go off key, love me anyways, because it's not about that. So close your eyes, please, because I want y'all looking at me and adding to it. And open your hands to receive. You provide the fire. You pour out your Spirit, and I will open up inside. Fill me up, God. Fill me up, God. Fill me up. Fill us up, God. Fill us up, God. Fill us up. You provide the fire, and we'll provide the sacrifice. You pour out your Spirit, and we will open up inside. Fill us up, God. Fill us up, God. Fill us up. Fill our cups, God. Fill our cups, God. Fill our cups. Father, I ask that whatever the need is of every individual that's in this room, God, that you will meet it. And God, you will show them that there is purpose in their trial. There is purpose in their voyage. You will reveal to us, God, that you are good no matter what, that you are there even when we can't feel it, and that, God, you see it all, and that it will all play a part in the bigger picture. Father, help us trust you with things that we don't understand. Help us to submit to your will, God, to expand when it's uncomfortable. God, we ask for growth. Jesus. I want to run over. I want to run over. Fill us up until we overflow. We want to run over. We want to run over. Fill us up until we overflow. We want to run over. We want to run over. We want to run over. Fill us up, Lord. Thank you all so much for being a part of this family. Thank you all for being a part of the vision and helping us move forward with what we know the Lord is telling us to do on this side of Jacksonville. Thank you for being an intricate part of the vision of what God wants to do in this house. We are thankful that each and every one of you are part of our family. We love you, and we pray that tonight's message blessed you immensely, and we will see you on Sunday.